Nigeria's economic situation is a complex one with varying perspectives on its financial health. This is owing to its economic status. Nigeria is actually regarded as the largest economy in Africa and has a significant GDP. Its economy is actually diverse with major sectors which includes oil and gas, agriculture, services including telecommunications, finance and commerce including manufacturing. Despite its tremendous GDP and being the largest economy in Africa, it has its own challenges. These challenges include poverty, income inequality, infrastructural deficit, and corruption. These challenges is actually plaguing Nigeria. As a result of this, the relationship between income and poverty is actually very complex. That is, the relationship between the income, that is what people actually earn, and the level of poverty is actually at a disparity. In other words, despite the fact that people are actually working and they earn what I call income at the end of every financial month, it is quite unfortunate that most of them cannot be able to afford the basic necessities of life. While higher pay can actually improve what I call financial stability, poverty encompasses more than just their income. In other words, what people actually earn at the end of the month cannot actually commensurate with the high cost of living. So while you are actually earning well, or you're actually earning a big chunk or salary at the end of every financial month, you can actually still be poor. So you can still be poor even when you are actually rich. Now, these factors are as a result of what I call the cost of living. The cost of living in Nigeria is very, very high, whether you are living in the rural area or the urban area. The situation seems to be almost the same thing. Then there's also what we call debt. A lot of families are actually paying debt at the end of every financial month. The reason is that the income that is earned by an average household at the end of the month is not enough to sustain the expenses of the family, and as a result of that, most households will always look for a way out by obtaining what I call loans, by obtaining what I call buy now or pay later, by obtaining what I call easy buy, and some other forms of debt. At the end of the day, a lot of households or families are paying a lot of money in form of an interest for the loans collected. So one of these factors is owing to what I call high level of debt. Then the third one is what I call family size. You see, in developing countries or in Nigeria in particular, a lot of our people are unable to control their population or their family size. You see in some cases individuals that are middle class or lower class having up to 4, 5 or 6 children. So this factor is actually a militating factor. Then another factor is what I call lifestyle. We are actually in a society where people want to live an exorbitant, flamboyant lifestyle. People always come to the social media to display their wealth, to display their cars, to display their, those things they have actually gotten, in most cases through credited card. So most people in our part of the world, we always want to live large, and because they want to live large, their income may not be able to sustain this. In other words, they have to look for other ways through which they can be able to measure with their lifestyle. Then the fifth one is what I call financial literacy. Financial literacy. In our own part of the world here, financial literacy is very, very low. A lot of people do not have what I call financial education. Among the middle class, the poor, the lower class, and the rich class, the cases are always the same, except those that have financial education. For the lower class, they earn the money, they spend the money. For the middle class, they earn the money and spend the money in order to acquire or get what I call a higher credit scores, which should guarantee them higher loans at the end of the day. Then for the rich class, in most cases, for those of them that are not investing their money, they always use this money to fund their expensive lifestyle. So some Nigerians with high pay are still struggling with, financially, they are struggling financially due to the factors which I've actually enumerated: the cost of living, debt, family size, lifestyle, and lack of financial literacy. Based on this incontrovertible fact, a lot of Nigerians that are actually earning a high pay or salary at the end of the month, unfortunately too, are also struggling financially. So presently in Nigeria, whether you are in the lower class or the middle class or the upper class, most people are struggling financially. That is the circumstances. So a lot of Nigerians today are actually broke, despite the fact that they earn a lot of money. They find it very difficult to actually be able to sustain their lifestyle, and in most cases, most of them live in what I call debt. So it appears presently that the fat salary or the amount of money people actually earn at the end of the month cannot even save the situation. It should be noted that two factors are actually responsible for these unpalatable situations. Now, what are the factors? The first one is what I call the systems problem, and the second one is what I call the you or individual problem. The systems problem, or number two, the you problem or the individual problem. Now, it should be noted that Nigeria's inflationary rate right now is at 24.23%. That is the level of inflation in Nigeria. We are going to be looking at these two scenarios: the system problem and the individual problem. Now let's dive into the first one, which is the system problem. The system problem is actually caused by high rate of inflation in Nigeria. There is actually a high level of inflation in Nigeria now, and for our easy understanding, I will actually break them down one way or the other so that you can be able to understand what we're talking about. Like I said earlier, inflation stands at 24.23% as of March 2025 in Nigeria. Don't forget that we are now in the month of May. Now, here is actually a breakdown of the inflationary rates in Nigeria. Number one, headline inflation rate is 24.23%. Number two, food inflation rate is at 21.79%. Then number 3, the core inflation rate is at 24.43%. Urban inflation, which is number 4, is at 26.12%. And the last one, rural inflation rate, is at 20.89%. Now, if you look at this scenario, you will discover one thing, that this inflationary rate, whether headline inflation, food inflation, core inflation, urban inflation, or rural inflation, they are very close to each other. And that's why I said earlier that there is no way you are actually living in Nigeria that you are not going to feel the heat of the economy, whether you are in the lower class or the middle class or the upper class. The question now is, how do you actually spend your money? Do you spend your money as you earn it? Do you save your money as you earn it? Or you actually invest your money as you earn it? What will actually distinguishes or make or determine whether you are going to be wealthy or not is your ability to actually invest your money. So, inflationary rate has been rising due to various factors in Nigeria. Number 1 factor is increase in the prices of essential foods and non-food items. Now, a lot of people are complaining in our part of the world now because the prices of essential foods and non-essential foods have actually skyrocketed. And that's why a lot of people, whether in the lower class or the middle class or the upper class, are finding it very difficult to sustain their lifestyle in Nigeria. Number 2 factor is what I call depreciation of the naira. Unfortunately, in our part of the world, the naira is actually depreciating every time in comparison with the dollar. Right now, $1 is equivalent to 1,602 naira or 605 naira as of today in Nigeria. This is not a good one for the economy because the value of the naira has actually depreciated. The third one is actually rise in petrol prices. Unfortunately also, the price of petrol prices have actually risen in Nigeria. I think as of today, petrol is going for 880 naira to 890 naira. Something that we were buying before at 200 and something naira. Now it is actually 880 naira to 890 naira. So this is actually responsible for inflation as well. Then number 4 is that supply chain has been disrupted, including logistic challenges. Inflation is eating the people's salary, and saving in most cases has become very difficult. Things are more expensive, including housing, grocery, transportation, and the economy is also slowing down. This is not also good for the economy. Now, the system is actually profiting because a lot of people are not financially educated. And that is why I've always said in most of my lectures that for you to survive in this capitalist economic system, you actually need what I call financial education. The system actually favors those that are actually financially educated in a capitalist system or a free market economic system. So the free system actually favors those that are in the bank or the banking sector. It favors the government in form of taxes. It favors the corporation when they sell their goods and their services, and it also favors the employer when they pay their workers meager or small amount of money in form of a salary that cannot sustain them, not to talk of even being able to look for another form of a job. So the system actually favors the banks, the government, the corporations, and the employers. Now, for you to actually be able to sustain yourself in this economic system, you need financial education. It does not matter how much you are actually earning. You know, if you're earning high or you're earning lower, it doesn't really matter, because money does not have a value. You'll be surprised that when you bring out some certain amount of money now and you buy one or two things, the money has actually disappeared. And you also need to know that if you're actually keeping your money in the bank in form of a saving, and you actually believe that you are well-to-do or you are financially stable, it is not a guarantee to wealth creation, because your money is not creating value, but rather your money is making other people to be very, very rich. A lot of people actually blame others for their financial misery, but that does not actually solve the problem. And for that reason, this will take me into the second point, which is the individual problem or the you problem. It should be noted that the system problem cannot be fixed by you, but there's something you can actually fix by yourself. And what is that thing? The you problem or the individual problem. The more money you actually earn, the more access you have to credit facilities. You should know that. So when you have or you earn more money, you have access to more credit facilities from the banks and other mortgage financial institutions. Now, this is a problem, most especially when that big money you are actually earning, you are unable to spend that money wisely. Don't forget that when you earn money in a month, you need to split that money into spending, savings, and investment. Savings is actually for emergency, and that's why I said earlier that if you are actually keeping your money in the bank in form of savings, it does not guarantee you wealth. What you are actually doing there is that you are actually preparing for emergency in the future. So it is not a guarantee for wealth creation. So the second one, which is the saving, is actually the second one, which is the spending, is actually the money you spend on daily basis on miscellaneous. While the one for the investment is actually the one that actually create value at the end of the day. So what will create money for you at the end of the day is actually the money you have actually invested. So if you are not investing your money, but rather you are saving your money, that is not a guarantee for wealth creation. You should be able to manage your income and your expenses at the end of every financial month. Your income should exceed your expenses. That is, your income should be higher than your expenses. Your expenses should be lower compared to how much you earn. Through this, you can actually be able to save some money or actually be able to invest some money. You need to understand how the system works. That is how money actually works. Money does not like stagnancy. Money does not like restriction. Money loves to move around. Money loves to be invested. When you invest money, money creates value. When you save money, money does not create any value. And that's why you see that in most cases, banks, immediately you put your money into the banking system, they lend out your money, they make the money to work for them, and the money grow for them. So you need to understand how the system actually works, that you need to put your money into operations, making your money working for you and making your money growing for you. You need to know that the capitalist system does not care about you. The capitalist system is exploitative in nature. The capitalist system makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. The capitalist system is a highly competitive economic system. The capitalist system is created to benefit those that have financial education. The capitalist system is not created for those that does not have financial education. So irrespective of how much you are actually earning in a month, you can still make a lot of money at the end of the day. You need to understand that Rome was not built in a day. The more you invest, the more money you make. So the system actually profits those that are financially educated. The system does not favor those that are financially dumb. The system is actually created to benefit the investors and the entrepreneurs, not the consumers or the employees. Do you see now? The system is actually not created to benefit the consumers and the employees because they do not create what we call surplus value. Investors and entrepreneurs create what we call surplus value, which is their profit. You don't have to be rich to be an investor. You can start small, no matter how small. A little drop of water will make a mighty ocean. Instead of spending all your money, instead of saving all your money, you could actually invest some part of this money at the end of the month. In other words, you don't need to spend all the money, you don't need to save all the money, you need to invest some part of this money. And that is why in most cases you can follow the 50-30-20 rule or the 30-40-30 rule, where you actually spend 30% or 40%, you save 30%, and you also invest 30% of your money. Whether you are in the lower class or the middle class or the upper class, you can make a difference. So people are actually broke because they do not invest their money, and that is why you need to start investing today. You need to cut down on your expenses. You can actually not be wealthy when you spend more than what you earn or you spend all your money. You need to invest some part of this money. You must make room for what I call emergency. You must make room for paying up all your interested debts, and you must also make room for investing your money. Now, when you talk about this investment, you could actually invest on stocks, you can actually invest on shares, you can actually invest on real estate, you can actually also invest on mutual funds, equity trust funds or ETFs or index funds. You can invest on any one of them. All you need to do is to meet your financial advisor on all these things I've actually listed, and they will actually advise you on what to do. I, for one, I do what I call money market funds, and money market funds is actually under what we call mutual funds. So you can invest on stocks, you can invest on shares, you can invest on real estate, you can invest on mutual funds, you can invest on equity trust funds, you can also invest on the index funds. And under stocks and the rest of them, we have the S&P 500, we have the Nasdaq, we have the Dow Jones, you have varieties of them. Now you need to understand that most of us now, because of our low level of financial education and because we don't have the time to study the history of the companies and the rest of them, we might not be an active investor, and that is why you also have an opportunity to become what we call a passive investor, where you actually get some percentage of profit at the end of every financial year. You must keep buying, whether the economy is booming or the economy is actually in a recession. So once you're actually investing your money, you need to keep investing your money because it's actually a decade of a sacrifice. So it's quite unfortunate that despite our level of education, some of us, we have BSc, we have HND, we have masters, we have PhD, we are called professors or emeritus protect professor or whatsoever, but the system does not teach us about financial education. We don't have financial education, and because we don't have financial education, most of us cannot invest our money very, very low. So you must be able to control your salary at the end of every month. Once you get that money, you need to understand, you need to split that money into savings, investment, and spending at the end of the day. Through this, you can actually build wealth. And don't forget that wealth creation or wealth building is actually a decade of a sacrifice. You need to keep saving, you need to keep investing, you need to keep investing, you need to keep investing, and you need to keep investing. And that's why I call it a decade of sacrifice. At least you should be able to invest for a period of what, of 10 years, a minimum of 10 years. At the end of 10 years, you'll be so amazed how much you have actually made for yourself. Because at the end of 10 years, your money will have actually compounded. Now, for example, if you have the financial capacity and you are actually able to invest 20 million, for 10 years, that means that after 10 years, you are going to have about 42 point something million in your investment. Now, tell me, you can actually live on your 42 point something million every financial year without worrying about anything again. At that point, you have attained what I call a financial independence. Financial independence. So the reason why Nigerians are actually broke in this economic situation is because people actually spend all the money they earn. There is no room for investment and there is no room for savings. You need to know that once you earn that money, irrespective of your class, whether you are in the high class or in the lower class or in the middle class, you need to invest some money. So investment is a guarantee to the future. Investment is what will create wealth for you, because when you invest your money is actually growing, creating value for you and working for you. But when you spend all that money or you save that money, you'll be so amazed that inflation will surpass your expenses. But if you are actually investing your money, inflation cannot surpass your expenses, most especially if you have gone through the decade of sacrifice. So those things that you actually denied yourself when you are investing your money, you can now buy those things, or you are now being able to afford those things for yourself. So I hope you have actually gained something from this video. If you have gained something, don't forget to click on that notification button, and don't forget to also to share that video to those outside there. Till I see you next time, thank you.